Hey guys, welcome back for chapter 31 of Book Scavenger. So Emily and Matthew just went book scavenging, and found the raven box or the raven something, and there was a clue in there. So let's see what that clue leads to in chapter 31. Here we go. After Emily and Matthew returned home, she spent over an hour trying to decode the odd little symbols on the flyer with no luck. The message was so short, using frequency analysis didn't amount to much help. Only the backwards L symbol was repeated, but that could still be any letter. Even if she tried replacing it with a commonly used letter, she had no way of knowing if it was the right one, and it was incredibly difficult to fill in the other symbols in a way that made an actual word. Like if she used E for the duplicate symbol, here's her guesses, then the word would be themed or pieced, right there. Again, I am not a decoder. These were both words, but how would she know which one was the right word if either one was at all? Or if she used T, oh, here's more. If she used T, it would be rotate and tote. Was that even a word? Astute, question mark, or if it was an A, if that symbol was an A, could be crave it? Oh my gosh. She had to look up that one to make sure it was an actual word. Gravel or weasel. So these are all of her attempts at solving it. Thought I'd read them all instead of flipping the book back and forth. So that's if it was a T. That's if it was an A. Man, she must be brilliant. Those were almost words, but they weren't spelled right. She wadded up her paper and threw it across the room, where it bounced off the reindeer antlers that were now sitting next to the raven box. Yeah, I'd rather be working with him on this too, she snapped at the antlers. How had she ever enjoyed being a solo book hunter before? It was so quiet and laughless working alone. James's floorboards had creaked earlier, so she knew he was home, but there was no way she'd ask for his help now. She had tried getting a hint from Raven on Book Scavenger, but there was no response, which was especially annoying because Raven's online light was green, so she was obviously ignoring her. The only other cipher expert she could think of besides James was Mr. Quisling, and there was no way she would ask for his help either. Interesting form of note-taking, was Crane. He would probably dismiss her with some astonishment to study more and play less. Admonishment. Oh, a bolt of inspiration struck. Emily dug through her backpack, gently laying her notebook and the gold bug aside, then tossed out various scraps of paper until she found the bent calling card of that poacher who stole her book at the ferry building weeks ago. Babbage, that was the name. She'd remembered Booker had been listed on the profile too, so they were schoolmates. Not that that meant much, since it was such a big school. She probably had a stronger familiarity with the window cat she passed on her way there than she did with the 99% of the kids at Booker. She would send Babbage a message and ask if he or she wanted to meet up at school to talk ciphers. Maybe she should even mention this new puzzle. Puzzle people usually couldn't resist at least looking at a new one, if not attempting to solve it. Fingers crossed, Babbage would reply to her message. On Wednesday at school, she did her best to avoid James. She didn't need him anyway. She'd quickly formed a new clique with the seagulls who hovered near her at lunchtime. She'd flick a piece of bread to a seagull she'd begun to call Bob because of the way he moved his head up and down while he watched her eat. "Tomorrow's Halloween, Bob," she said. Bob twisted his head sideways and stabbed his beak at the piece of bread. "Do kids normally dress up here, Bob?" Bob nodded. "I don't know if you're trustworthy, Bob. I get the feeling you'd say anything for more food." She tossed another bit of crust his way. Poor Emily. There had been no word from Babbage on the day before, so when she got home, she went straight for the computer to check her messages again. Her mom was updating their 50 Homes in 50 States blog with photos from the Garden Gate Park concert. Emily leaned over her shoulder. "Can I check my messages real quick?" she asked. "No, but you can check them quickly," her mom replied. "I love this one." The image she was resizing was shot through a crowd to focus on Emily perched on the fountain with her hands pressed flat next to her thighs. Her head was turned towards the De Young Museum, so all you saw was her long ponytail. Orange lights glowed in the trees. The crowd was blurry and colorful around her. Someone's tutu and butterfly wings, a person with a unicorn head, Benjamin Franklin, and a group of people with neon-colored wigs. It was like looking down into a bizarro rabbit hole to a hoodie and jeans-wearing Alice. Her mom saved her work and stood up, patting Emily's cheek. "All yours," she said. Emily logged into Book Scavenger, and a new message notification greeted her. Babbage had replied. The message read, I would be willing to meet with you tomorrow morning before school. I have first period in room 40. We can talk there. Hearing back from Babbage gave her a lift, so she decided to try her luck again with Raven, who was, of course, online. She was beginning to suspect Raven must be an adult who worked at a computer all day because she always seemed to be there. I'm wondering if Raven is not an actual person, but it's just like a computer generated thing that just automatically responds to the right questions. That's what I'm getting, but I don't know. All right. So she says, Surly Wombat says, "Hi, Raven. I found another clue." Raven, "I can't help you with that." Emily sighed. Raven was such a stickler with the whole ask in the form of a question rule. Surly Wombat, "Do you have a hint for solving the cipher in the Maltese Falcon?" Raven, "Charlie, Sally, Lucy." Ooh, that's a good hint. "What kind of hint is that?" Emily muttered. Beggars can't be choosers, though. She did individual searches for book scavenger players named Charlie, Sally, and Lucy, but there were hundreds of results. She'd have to think on this hint a bit more. That night, in anticipation of meeting Babbage, she double-checked her bag for school, making sure she didn't forget the Maltese Falcon. She'd taken to always carrying the Gold Bug and the Poe collection of stories with her, too, but because her backpack was so bulky, she almost removed them. The 2 Poe books were the smallest ones and barely added to the bulk, so she left them in. Anyway, what if she and Babbage really hit it off talking about ciphers? She might want to tell him or her about Griswold's game, or at least show the original hidden message on how it worked. You just never knew, so it was better to be prepared. Emily also squared away an idea for a Halloween costume, if you could call it a costume. She wanted something low-key so she could walk that line of not standing out in an embarrassing way if nobody actually dressed up, but also not looking like a stick in the mud if everyone did. She is smart. She used plain white labels and cut out dots and dashes for Morse code and then stuck them on a black shirt like this. So this is Morse code here. For the first time since she and James stopped talking, she was kind of excited for school tomorrow. Oh, I actually don't know Morse code, but I bet you guys could look that up if you want to write it down. I'm kind of curious what that says. Maybe just Emily? I have no idea. I don't know. Anyways, Thursday morning, Halloween, Emily got to school extra early. The hallways were nearly empty. 2 teachers Emily didn't know stopped talking as she walked by. One dressed in a striped red shirt, matching knit hat, and round black glasses raised his hand in greeting, and the woman dressed as a mad scientist added, "Morning." Emily rounded a corner, passing the paper mache witch hats decorated by 6th graders that lined the windows of the library. She studied every student in the halls, wondering if one might be Babbage. A boy wearing a panda hat and a Giants jersey, 2 girls with cat ear headbands and their faces painted with whiskers. Room 40 was where she and James had social studies with Mr. Quisling, so she shouldn't have been surprised when she stepped inside to see him there, grading papers, but she was. "Oh," Emily stepped backwards, "I'm supposed to meet a student here." Mr. Quisling set down his pen. He hadn't dressed up for the holiday. Surly Wombat? Oh my gosh. It's him! Okay, this was a huge turn of events. Did not expect Babbage to be an adult, let alone Mr. Quisling. For a moment, she was asking if that was the student she was meeting. Finally, she understood he was asking if she was Surly Wombat. You're Babbage? She knew adults played book scavenger, but she didn't think that meant teachers. "At your service." His eyes flicked down to her t-shirt, then back up. He cracked a smile. "Boo to you too," he said. "Oh, Morse code says boo. Nice. Okay. Guess you guys don't have to figure it out." Emily's face warmed. "I wasn't sure if kids dressed up for Halloween or not." Mr. Quisling nodded. "Clever. Subtle. I like it. So you have a question about a cipher?" His eyes narrowed. "This isn't one of the submissions for class, is it?" No, Emily said. "It's not for school. It's just something I was working on in my free time." This seemed to satisfy Mr. Quisling. "Let's take a look." Emily set her backpack on his desk and unzipped it to pull out her notebook. Before she laid a hand inside, Mr. Quisling cleared his throat. "That isn't the book I think it is, I hope." Oh, why didn't she think before opening her backpack? The gold bug sat prominently on top of her notebook. She'd completely forgotten she told Mr. Quisling she'd hidden it through Book Scavenger and would try to retrieve it. As casually as possible, she shifted the book deeper into her backpack while she removed her notebook. Ooh. "I've already seen it. There's no use trying to hide it," Mr. Quisling said. It will be much worse if you lie to me. You can trust me on that." Reluctantly, Emily said, It It is that Poe book. I am giving it back soon. Mr. Quisling's mouth formed a thin, tight line. He wiggled his jaw as if he were grinding something between his teeth. His next words came out very slowly. You did hear me say someone's job was on the line for that book? A man could be fired if he doesn't have it. Yes, Emily said. She couldn't meet Mr. Quisling's gaze. From the moment she'd met Mr. Quisling, she'd been on his bad side. He must have had a different idea of the kind of person she actually was. Let me get this straight. You would rather a man lose his job so you can keep a book. With every word Mr. Quisling said, Emily shrank an inch. I wasn't going to keep... Mr. Quisling held up a hand to stop her and then turned it palm up. Give me the book. She had to make him understand. Mr. Quisling, it's not what you think. Before Mr. Quisling cut her off, she rushed on. It's Mr. Griswold's next game, and I can prove it. Oh, that's the end of chapter 31. Oh my gosh. I want to keep reading so badly, but I can't. All right, well, there it is, folks. She's been caught with Mr. Quisling. That was very eye-opening. Now we know Babbage is Mr. Quisling. She got some clues from Raven. What an exciting chapter. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for chapter 32. I will see you guys back. Bye.